The air in Baghdad was unnervingly still that morning. December 30th, 2006. Somewhere behind the concrete walls of Camp Justice, one of the most infamous men of the modern era was about to die. And strangely, he knew it, he accepted it, maybe even welcomed it. They say that power corrupts. But what happens when that power is absolute? When one man's word becomes law, and his fear is the only thing holding a nation together. That's the story of Saddam Hussein, the man who built an empire of terror and watched it crumble beneath American boots. Long before the world saw him dangling from a rope, Saddam was a symbol of ruthless control. Born in a small village near Tikrit in 1937, he came from poverty, revenge, and violence, the kind of beginnings that harden a man early. By 1979, he had climbed to the top of Iraq's political pyramid, and when he got there, he made sure nobody else could follow. The Ba'ath Party purges that years set the tone for his reign. In front of television cameras, Saddam forced supposed traitors to confess and then ordered their executions. Right there in the hall. It was theater, but it was also a message. This is what happens when you cross me. For almost a quarter of a century, Saddam ruled Iraq like a mafia boss running a nation. He built palaces across the desert, sculpted golden statues of himself, and filled the streets with murals of his face. To the outside world, he was a dictator. To his supporters, he was Iraq itself. But the truth? His rule was drenched in fear. Torture, secret police, disappearances, that was everyday life. You didn't criticize Saddam. You didn't joke about him. People whispered his name as if it might hear them back. The Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988 turned Iraq into a killing field. Over 1 million lives lost. Million. And when that wasn't enough blood, Saddam used chemical weapons against the Kurds in the north, in Halabja in 1988. Entire families melted in their homes. He called it necessary. The world called it genocide. Fast forward to 1990. Saddam Avad Kuwait. Maybe he thought the world would let him. Maybe he believed his own myth. But the U.S.-led coalition came fast, and it was brutal. Iraq's army, once feared across the Middle East, was shredded in days. And yet, somehow Saddam survived. He stayed in power. He rebuilt. He executed anyone who doubted him. By 2003, the U.S. was done waiting. Accusations of weapons of mass destruction gave Washington the excuse it needed. The invasion came in March. Shock and awe, they called it. And that's exactly what it was. Explosions lighting up Baghdad's night sky, statues of Saddam crashing down, and a regime collapsing almost overnight. When Baghdad fell in April 2003, Saddam vanished. No one knew where he was. American intelligence called him high-value target number 1. Posters went up. A $25 million reward for his capture. But for months, nothing. Between July and December 2003, U.S. forces launched hundreds of raids. Every clue, every whisper was followed. They raided homes, farms, even old bunkers near Tikrit, Saddam's hometown. They questioned drivers, cousins, cooks, anyone remotely connected to him. Then came the break. On December 1st, a former driver mentioned a name, Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit, Saddam's right-hand man. Within 2 weeks, his relatives were rounded up, interrogated. And under pressure, one of them talked. He gave up the location. A small farmhouse near the town of Ad-Dor, just south of Tikrit. Operation Red Dawn began before dawn on December 13th, 2003. Over 600 American soldiers surrounded 2 suspected sites, codenamed Wolverine 1 and Wolverine 2. At first, they found nothing. Just empty buildings, farm tools, and dust. But one soldier noticed a patch of ground that didn't look right, a small rug covering a hole. He kicked it aside. Underneath was a narrow entrance, hidden by bricks and dirt. A spider hole. As they were about to throw a grenade inside, a hand appeared. Then a man's face, disheveled, bearded, blinking in the flashlight beam. It was him, Saddam Hussein. He carried a pistol, a Kalashnikov, and $750,000 in cash. But he didn't resist. "I am Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq," he said, and then quietly added, "I am willing to negotiate." The soldier struck him with the butt of a rifle, zip-tied his hands, and pulled him from the hole. The hunt was over. Saddam's capture was broadcast around the world. The once untouchable dictator, now a filthy old man with overgrown hair, being examined like livestock by American medics. That image, Saddam's mouth being checked with a flashlight, became iconic. To many Iraqis, it was justice. To others, humiliation. Even some in the West said it broke the Geneva Conventions, which forbid exposing prisoners of war to public curiosity. But to Washington, it was proof. We got him. For the U.S., Saddam's capture meant victory. For Iraq, it was just the beginning of chaos. Saddam's trial began officially on July 1, 2004, at the Iraqi Special Tribunal. The charges were endless: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. But the first case, the one they could prove, was the Dhu Jail massacre. 148 Shia villagers executed in 1982 after an assassination attempt on Saddam's motorcade. When he first entered the courtroom, Saddam refused to stand. He looked at the judges and sneered, calling them agents of the occupiers. His first words were defiant. "This is all theater. The real criminal is Bush." Throughout the proceedings, Saddam's behavior swung between arrogance and rage. He often interrupted, shouted at witnesses, and mocked the judges. At one point, he even told the prosecutor to go to hell. His lawyers weren't safe either. Over the course of the trial, 3 were assassinated, shot in Baghdad streets, their cars set ablaze. The tribunal continued regardless. Saddam defended his actions in Dhu Jail, claiming he was protecting Iraq from traitors and Iranian agents. He refused to recognize the court's authority. "I'm still the president of Iraq," he said again and again. But the verdict was inevitable. On November 5, 2006, the tribunal sentenced Saddam Hussein to death by hanging. When the sentence was read, he stood tall and shouted, "Long live the people! Long live the Arab nation! Down with the spies! God is great!" After the verdict, Saddam still had one chance: an appeal. But on December 26, 2006, it was rejected. No more delays. The sentence would be carried out within 30 days. The Americans reportedly wanted to postpone it, afraid the execution might ignite more violence. But Iraq's new prime minister, Nouri al-Maliki, was determined. Saddam would hang before the end of the year. In those last 2 days, Saddam wrote a letter, a strange mix of pride and calm. He urged Iraqis to stay united, not to hate the people of America, but to hate their leaders who ordered the invasion. He ended it saying he was ready to die as a martyr. The night before his execution, he was given a final meal: chicken, rice, and a cup of hot water with honey. Simple, almost humble. He reportedly slept a few hours, woke before dawn, prayed, and waited. At 6 a.m. on December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was led into the execution chamber at Camp Justice in Baghdad's Kadhimiya district. He wore a black coat over a white shirt. His hands were bound. Witnesses described him as calm, even composed. Some said he looked proud. The room was small: concrete walls, a wooden gallows, and a trapdoor beneath. Around a dozen men stood inside: judges, guards, clerics, and a few masked executioners wearing black hoods. As he entered, Saddam carried a Quran. He looked at the rope hanging before him, then turned to one of the guards and asked, "Is this manhood?" The atmosphere was tense. Some witnesses couldn't hide their hatred. They began shouting, "Down with the tyrant! You destroyed us! You killed us!" Saddam shot back, "I saved you from the Persians and the Americans." The argument escalated until a prosecutor begged for silence. "Please, this man is facing execution." Saddam ignored them all. He began reciting the Shahada: "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." He said it once, then again. As he reached the second repetition, the trapdoor opened. A sharp crack echoed in the chamber. Saddam Hussein fell through the floor, neck broken instantly. It was over in seconds. Witnesses said the body hung motionless. No twitching, no struggling. Just silence. At 6:03 a.m., doctors confirmed Saddam Hussein was dead. Hours later, his body was flown by helicopter to his hometown, Al-Ajah, near Tikrit. He was buried beside his sons Uday and Qusay before sunrise on December 31st. But even in death, controversy followed. Some claimed his corpse had been stabbed by guards, others denied it. Later, in 2015, his tomb was destroyed during fighting with ISIS. Reportedly, his body was removed beforehand by loyalists. The footage of Saddam's execution, filmed secretly on a mobile phone, leaked online within hours. The world saw the dictator's final moments, the insults, the prayer, the drop. For many Iraqis, it was closure. For others, a stain, proof that justice had turned into revenge. Even American officials later admitted the execution looked more like a lynching than a lawful hanging. So, was it justice or vengeance? That question still hangs over Iraq. Saddam Hussein's reign cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Entire villages erased, chemical weapons on civilians, torture chambers beneath palaces. But his execution didn't bring peace. It didn't stop the bloodshed. In fact, the years that follow were even worse. Civil war, sectarian killings, ISIS, all rose from the vacuum his death left behind. In the end, Saddam's rope didn't just snap a man's neck. It snapped a nation's fragile balance. And maybe that's the cruel irony of history. Removing the monster doesn't always end the nightmare. He died at dawn, unrepentant, defiant. And somewhere in the silence that followed, Iraq stepped into a new era, one still haunted by a shadow.